Nuclear talks with Iran are set to end round 2 next weekend. The Associated Press is reporting the next round coming up this weekend will be held in Rome. President Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, sat down with Iran's foreign minister for about 2 hours in Oman on Saturday. I want to now bring in former U.S. Air Force Assistant Vice Chief of Staff, retired Lieutenant General Richard Newton. He is also NewsNation's senior national security contributor. General, always good to see you. The White House is calling this weekend's meeting very positive and constructive. My question is, if Iran refuses to eliminate its nuclear program, what choices does that leave on the table for the United States?
Well, good morning, Markie. I think I would agree certainly with the Trump White House. This was a good start on Saturday that Special Envoy Steve Witkoff led the United States delegation there at Oman. And again, still the objective here, Markie, is to have complete dismantlement of Iran's nuclear program, their weapons program. And I think the first initiative here is to try diplomatic talks and negotiations. But should that fail, there's plenty of U.S. military capability in the region. President Trump has said all options are on the table, and we'll be standing by for how the talks presume. I believe also we're looking at a timeline, Markie, here of a date certain, but certainly within the 2 months from this point on to strike a deal. If that doesn't occur, again, all options remain on the table.
Yeah, and we know that for years they have balked at ending their program. Just hypothetically, you know, if they refuse, Witkoff is going to have to take that to President Trump. And then the White House really has a tough choice, right, about how much of Iran's nuclear capabilities it's willing to tolerate. Should America be willing to compromise when it comes to this?
Absolutely not. I would advise the president to stick to his guns, if you will, in terms of demanding that, again, the complete dismantlement of their nuclear weapons program, to have a rather aggressive inspection regime, much like at any time, anywhere. It could be third parties such as the Atomic Energy Agency, International Atomic Energy Agency also, but nonetheless, and a date certain that they will comply with this. Otherwise, the United States has plenty of, as I mentioned, military capabilities such as you and I've talked about this, the B-2 stealth bombers. We've got 6 of those aircraft at a very strategic location in the Indian Ocean at Diego Garcia that can carry those bunker buster bombs that go after deeply buried nuclear weapons sites. They're almost 250 feet in the ground, 3 feet walled with concrete and so forth. We've added a second carrier strike group into the region. The Carl Vinson is now joined up with USS Truman. So plenty of firepower, as well as the president's been very clear. He would anticipate that Israel, if there was a decision to strike, Israel would lead. The United States would strongly support and so forth. But we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here. But certainly the United States has significant leverage here, not only from the economic sanctions, diplomatically, but also with this military capability that I just outlined.
Yeah, and Witkoff has also reiterated that even if they do come to an agreement, there's going to have to be substantial verification that Iran isn't making a bomb of sorts. I mean, what will those guarantees have to look like?
They would have to be very stringent. They would have to, as I mentioned, the third party, especially the International Atomic Energy Agency, with their experts, with their boots on the ground in Iran, inspecting those weapon storage areas or perhaps weapons nuclear development areas, as well as their ballistic missile sites. I would anticipate also the United States would have a role in that. But that's really the key here is, should we get a diplomatic agreement that the inspections would be, as I mentioned, rather stringent. They would be unending. In other words, we wouldn't necessarily put a sundown clause on them for 1 year or 2 year, but to make sure that Iran is completely abiding by an agreement to completely dismantle their nuclear program and abiding by that. So the inspections are absolutely essential, both again, with inspectors, boots on the ground, as well as other means to monitor nuclear development at Iran, should they decide. The key here, Markie, is that they decided to break out from the agreement.
Yeah. We'll see what round 2 of talks looks and sounds like next weekend. General Richard Newton, thanks so much as always, sir. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Markie.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. Also, don't forget to click that red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.